Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to the BreakFEST Club, a show where we talk about everything related to music festivals. We give you a really nice recap and a rundown on what's been going on in the space. We'll host a couple special guests. Hopefully our second one will join, but if not, we've got one special guest on the roster for today. So very excited to talk about music festivals and what's coming in the space. So this week, we are slated to have Zach Bauer, who is the general manager of Temple Nightclub here in Denver, Colorado. And we are hoping that Aaron, aka Sriracha Man, will be able to make it today as well. So we are going to get right into it. So first and foremost, breakfast. So today I'm having some bacon and eggs, very fitting for the day. Definitely got to get it all started in a good way, get those calories in before just diving deep into work. So that is my breakfast for today, and we'll definitely talk to our guests about what they're eating for breakfast as well. So we're going to dive right in here into our festival and music news roundup. So let's talk a little bit about what we saw in terms of music festivals or announcements over the last week. One of the first things that we saw was that Excision, bass music artist, made a very special announcement last week, letting us know that something is coming, and the announcement is supposed to happen today. So taking a quick peek at that, we'll take a look at the video that he shared on his Facebook and on his Instagram. So taking a look at this, it looks like he's announcing something big that's supposed to be coming today. So if you've got any guesses on what that is, please feel free to leave us a comment in the chat and let us know what you think he could be up to. Really excited to hear what that announcement could be. Moving on to the next piece, we did see Hard Summer come back this year in San Bernardino, California, and we'll take a quick peek at that as well. Hard Summer seemed to have hosted quite a few people on the property this year, which is really exciting stuff. Although, of course, there are still a lot of concerns about COVID and the Delta variant, so we'll dive into that in just a minute here. But taking a look at Hard Summer, it appears to be a full crowd, which is pretty exciting stuff. Looks just like a regular festival, which is pretty awesome to see it come back at full capacity. So that is just one other festival that took place over the last weekend. In addition to that, we also did see Lollapalooza hosted its festival after taking a hiatus. And one notable performance came from Limp Bizkit, a band that we have not heard from in forever. And we did see Fred Durst get on stage and just go into a full performance. I think what's interesting about this is that he's also he mentioned in his performance that he's releasing a new single, Dad Jokes or Dad Something or Another. So I think that this performance played really well into this. So without further ado, we'll take a quick peek at what that looked like. Tell me what you wanna do now. Breathe in, now breathe out. Hands on the hands down. Tell me what you wanna do now. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. Now I know. Pretty wild stuff, if you ask me. Very exciting as well. I think having Limp Bizkit on stage this year was definitely a good call. If any of you that are watching right now are Limp Bizkit fans, feel free to drop a note in the chat. I personally was a huge fan in middle school. If that relays my age at all, that's okay. But looked like a great performance overall. And I'm super excited to see what this band has brewing up over the next year to 2 years. Another piece to all of this, like we just reviewed Hard Summer, and we also took a look at Lollapalooza. Now the big question becomes, is this safe? Is what we're seeing safe? Especially with the rise of what we know as the Delta variant, which we've seen in a lot of news outlets let us know that even if you're vaccinated, you could still potentially be prone to contracting the Delta variant. So there are a lot of organizations that are coming forward and kind of asking and posing the questions, is it safe to go to these music festivals or outdoor concerts? Would love to hear your opinions for sure. I know this is a question that I have a lot when it comes to festival organizers and having conversations with them about what their plans are. A lot of times I'm being asked what other organizers are saying and how folks are kind of responding to this. And of course, the big question being, will we go into another lockdown? It seems to be like that's not entirely clear right now. I think a lot of promoters, at least the ones that I've spoken to, are going forward business as usual unless the data might be supporting otherwise. And if the CDC makes another comment or suggests going into lockdown or perhaps wearing masks once again. So we'll definitely see what happens from this. Lollapalooza, I know that they are taking a look at what has happened in the transmission with COVID and the Delta variant. So there are studies that are being done. So hopefully by next week's show, we'll be able to provide some answers on that. But for now, it's just a question and definitely a point of concern for a lot of organizers and certainly for some attendees. So as that story develops, we'll definitely keep you in the loop with that. To go off of one of the stories that we had last week, it was in relation to DaBaby making some very inappropriate comments at Rolling Loud in Miami. We also did see that with these comments, he actually did wind up getting pulled from the Lollapalooza lineup. Lollapalooza came out with a statement saying that they were founded on love and equality and acceptance and decided to move DaBaby from the performance that he had scheduled on Sunday. And following that, DaBaby did release a statement as seen on his Instagram. And we've got the Variety has reported on this. Basically just DaBaby coming forward and apologizing for the things that he had said about the LGBTQ plus community, for the hurtful and triggering comments that he made. He apologizes for his misinformed comments about HIV and AIDS, and he knows that education on this is important. So it'll be really interesting to see, what winds up happening from this and from the comments that he made. Like I just said, we've already seen him get pulled from one major performance at Lollapalooza. So we'll take a look at this and keep you posted on what will happen for any of the other performances at any other festivals that he has moving forward. So those are some of the updates for the last week. If you've got any additional updates for us, would love to hear your comments, concerns, or questions in the comments. Definitely trying to keep on top of all of this movement. It seems like we're going to be pretty stacked in the fall since all of the changes that were being made in festival schedules. Everything started getting pushed to the fall. So it'll be really interesting to see how things wind up progressing as we get closer and closer to September. And if you've got any festivals that you are looking forward to, please let us know also in the comments. I know that there's quite a few that are coming up over the next couple of months. So moving right into our guest here, kind of did just a nice rundown of what's going on in the industry. We are going to be speaking with our industry guest, who is Zach Bauer. He is the general manager of Temple Nightclub in Denver. Temple Nightclub also does have a club in San Francisco. So really wanted to bring him on the show today to talk about, what it looks like to be a part of a nightclub post-pandemic, ask some questions about that, and get to know his career trajectory a little bit better. So without further ado, Zach, I am going to bring you up here. Hi, Zach. How are you?
Good, Steph. How are you doing?
I am doing good. So good to have you here. I'm really excited to talk about nightclub life. So let's just dive right into it. Obviously, with the reopening of nightclubs, that was a really big win for everybody in the community, being able to be in an indoor space. So would love to kind of hear a little bit about what reopening a large nightclub has looked like, and what current precautions you have in place.
Yeah, of course. It's obviously it's been kind of crazy, getting back into the rhythm after being shut down for, I believe, 15 months is how long we were down for. Yeah, coming back into this whole scene, there's a lot of hesitance and anxieties and stuff like that, bringing in people together, especially like in an enclosed environment. And we are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, nightclub in all of Colorado. And I believe our capacity when you activate all of our rooms put together is around 1,500, but we have separate rooms with separate capacities. That breaks down a little differently. But, being closed down for 12 to 15 months and being in the same venue, basically, when we left, the venue was more or less abandoned. Our contract or our lease agreement was basically suspended, and we all kind of took off. We had nothing to do there. So reopening that, a lot of things kind of fall through the cracks and need a lot of maintenance work. When you're not using plumbing for 15 months, a lot of interesting things happen with dried up plumbing lines, we found out. We've been working through to repair that. We did do a lot of before the pandemic, we were trying to find, or during when the pandemic first started, we were trying to find ways to keep the club activated, but also keep the social distancing in line and everything like that. So we had a few weeks of like a brunch session where it was like club brunch, like house DJs and catered tables and everything like that. Still trying to keep like a bottle service, like mimosas and all of that kind of vibe going. But, that became really difficult to keep going or to keep maintaining over and over again. And so with that, you have when you leave a place kind of very suddenly, like we did, besides the plumbing, you have guests that move in of the animal sort that was a challenge to get rid of, but we got rid of everything like that. We opened the club. We were scheduled to open, I believe, July 4th, the week of July 4th, but because Denver or Colorado decided to lift the COVID restrictions very suddenly, we pushed our deadline from July 4th to June 1st. So kind of had to fast track all of our opening procedures and all of those maintenance procedures. And we're working through it and getting
quick turnaround,
everything up to date and everything.
Awesome. And how about some of the acts? I mean, obviously, you just mentioned a really fast turnaround as it relates to getting the club reopened. So in terms of getting some of these big acts to come and perform at Temple, how has that kind of panned out? And who are some of the acts that you've hosted since the reopen?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually been it's been a lot of fun, now that music is coming back and live music is coming back, so many acts are ready to be touring again, ready to be getting in front of the public. And we opened with Medusa as our reopening night. We had Recno come in for our Pride weekend, which was just absolutely crazy. It was a lot of fun. Basically being in line with Pride weekend, we opened a couple weeks before all of that. So it was a really wild night. Lots of fun DJs. We're typically a house venue for the most part. We do have a second stage, LVL stage, that does cater more to like hip hop, trap, bass music. But for Recno, if you're familiar with his music, things got really heavy, and it was kind of nice seeing that craziness in the club. After that, we've had other DJs. We've had like Two Friends came by, and that was a huge success. Loud Luxury just came through not too long ago, and Temple has always kind of prided itself in bringing like the Las Vegas club culture to Denver, and with having bottle service, having like presentations and all sorts of elevated experiences on top of just being a live music venue. Having like Loud Luxury and Two Friends really kind of brought that home. And last weekend was just was a global dance festival in in Denver, which was a huge success, massive festival that took place right outside of the Denver Broncos Stadium. We hosted a couple pre-parties and post-parties of that too. For our pre-party, we had Sunburn, fantastic event, lots of fun. And then for our after parties, we had Chami, which was incredible, and also Green Velvet, kind of a huge legend and staple in the house industry. So we've been going hard. We've been having huge nights and basically packing the house as much as we can, and it's been a big success.
Awesome. Love to hear that. And Temple is definitely a place that I love. I think it's just a really unique, cool layout with all the lighting, the LED lighting on the sides, and just really, really cool spot. So for anybody that is from Denver, make sure you check it out. And if you're ever visiting Denver, definitely a cool place to see. And you kind of mentioned some of these different events that you were hosting. You mentioned this like mimosa brunch. So now that you've stepped away from kind of this more of like the social distanced events, because we are open here in Colorado, what are some of the creative things that Temple is getting involved with right now?
Yeah, so on top of having having our two stages, we have our main room that's 3 stories. We have a mezzanine, we have a skybox that overlooks everything, and then having our LVL stage, which is kind of like almost like a warehousey vibe kind of deal to it. Low ceilings, like lots of cool, crazy lighting. But we also have something called the Miras Art Gallery, and it's something that's also in San Francisco as well. It's an international art gallery. We deal with a lot of national and international artist talent, whether it's right now it's a lot of paintings. We do have some sculptures in there too from all over the country. We do feature local talent here and there too, or local artists here and there. But yeah, that's been a really fun space to activate, especially because it is a completely different vibe. The club is very dark, blacked out, and lots of crazy production all over the place. But when you get into the gallery, it's an all-white room. We have movable walls all over the place that house different art pieces. And in that space, we're doing all sorts of different activations on the smaller scale. Like this week, we have a drag queen bingo. It's been a big hit.
That's fun. That's super fun.
Yeah, drag queen bingo. We have a big Grateful Dead cover band coming in on Thursday. Anyone's familiar with the Colorado music scene, jam bands are huge out here, especially Grateful Dead and Fish and stuff like that. And then, we're going to be getting into some stand-up comedy as well, and just it's kind of like an all over the place miscellaneous activation space surrounded in art. So it's been a lot of fun dealing with that.
Awesome. And now what about yoga? Because I took a yoga class at Miras, I want to say it was about a year ago. Are you guys planning to revamp that and the yoga classes there too?
Yeah, no, we that is something we are talking about and trying to get lined out. One of our resident DJs, Jador, she's fantastic. She opened for Green Velvet most recently, and we have her at least a few times a month. She brings in a huge crowd, and her DJing and her mixing is just absolutely fantastic. And she does a lot of yoga on the side, so we brought her to bring in like music and yoga classes. We have done it in Miras before. We have also activated it in the main room too. On our Instagram, I think we might have a couple of pictures of what that looks like in the main room, which is, when you have a 3-story room, yoga mats laid out all over the place and high level production. It's like the juxtaposition of the whole thing it's really cool to see. And that's one thing we've been really excited to reformat and bring back to the public.
Awesome. Love to hear that. I am very excited about that. I've done yoga on the rocks. Like I said, I've done yoga at Temple before. Super cool stuff. So excited to hear about those announcements. That is fantastic. So obviously, working in the nightclub space, you've got sort of this like 2-prong feature to it, I guess is the best way to describe it. On the one side, you've got these like upscale luxury experiences. When you think of nightclub, especially when you think of the one at Temple, you kind of associate it with like a Vegas experience, this really high-end experience. But then you've also got the music element to it. And especially here in Denver, where music is such a big part of of our lives, really, you're really kind of balancing what that looks like. And, I'd love to kind of hear, like, what steps did you take in your career in order to get to this position where you're kind of doing both?
Yeah, I mean, I've had kind of a crazy path for the most part. I grew up in Montana and I lived there, graduated high school and college there. Um, when I was in Montana, I partnered up with a few buddies to kind of bring electronic music to the area. Starting off as like small warehouse shows and house parties, moving to booking every little bar and club in the college town that we lived in, Missoula. And from there, we started building things a lot further, making connections with other promoters around the country. We started partnering with, we did a couple like Life in Color, we did Road to Freak Night out of Seattle, and we started bringing in like bigger and bigger talent as we started getting better at what we were doing. And we brought in like Zed's Dead, Minnesota, Keys and Crates, Figure, Must Die, all sorts of acts to basically we just had one giant venue, or not giant, but giant for Montana, which was a 1,500 cap room. We would just bring big acts there, and try and bring electronic music to an area that really didn't have much for that type of scene. And from there, my passion is a lot more in heavier music, big death metal fan. So
from death metal to nightclubs, we're gonna have to dive into that.
But yeah, it's a lot harder to make a profit off of that type of music versus and like bring in a big crowd versus something as popular as EDM. So we stuck with EDM and hip hop for the most part, and we grew our brand. And once we all kind of graduated high school, or graduated college, I should say, we kind of went our separate ways while keeping the brand somewhat intact. But I went to Portland for a while, and I managed a punk rock death metal nightclub. Did that for a little over a year, and wanted a little change of pace from the music industry, and started working in experiential marketing. And I feel like that's kind of what got me into the temple space, more or less. Doing experiential marketing, I worked a lot with Adidas, doing all sorts of random activations for them, whether it was like artist meet and greets. We would take, we'd go to New York and take parking garages and turn them into soccer tournament arenas and flip them into concert spaces afterwards with like high level production and stuff, and kind of just like really providing elevated, crazy experiences that people walk away with being like, that was way more than a soccer game, or that was like, it was just a whole bunch of wild stuff. And with that pretty much ended with COVID. Being in the live event activating scene, COVID kind of ruined everything, as most people are aware of. But when Temple announced that they were going to be reopening and rehiring, I decided to throw a Hail Mary of a resume and send it out to them and show them, my experiential experience and things that I wanted to do with their space. And that's one thing that I really do love about Temple is, again, it's not just a nightclub or a music venue. We do have the art gallery, and adding additional experiences on top of a music scene is something that's really important to the owners, is really important to me. And that's something that we've really been working through, is like, how many ways can we make this space more than what it was and more than what it currently is? And whether it's providing yoga or stand-up comedy or some of the stuff that we have lined up for the future is going to be really cool. That space is just going to keep growing as we add more production elements to it, as we add more experiences to the space. There's a lot of cool stuff planned.
Awesome. Love to hear that. We definitely got some activity in the chat here, which is great. We've got DJ Rosenboom, who said Night Metal Death Club. So I'm curious, like, with the comment that you just made about death metal, like, is there ever an opportunity to get really wild with Temple and bring in some different genres of music?
Oh, I wish. I mean, in a dream world, that would be awesome. A space that's that large is going to be really hard to pull that type of crowd and make it like look like a full room. Lots of death metal, punk rock, anything like that, kind of stays to, I feel like an 800 cap or a little bit less rooms, especially for the stuff that I'm really passionate about. I usually stick to like dive bar touring bands and 300 to 500 cap rooms, but it'd be a lot of fun, and especially with the stuff that we're doing in the art gallery with like having like the cover band, the Jerry Garcia cover band, and I think they're called Barely Garcia actually is their name. And having like that kind of space used as a different area to amplify music. Obviously, you can't really put heavy music in there because we have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of precious art in there, and I don't really think a mosh pit would be acceptable in a space like that. But being able to do something like that in either our smaller like LVL room would be fantastic, and that would just kind of require a stage change. And I know we have the ability to do it. Like recently, we did just announce Keys and Crates, I believe, for January at Temple, and that's going to require us to kind of move around the stage and move around like where our go-go dancers are at and stuff like that, so we can fit like their drum setup and their keys and everything like that. So there's always a possibility, and I would love to see it.
Awesome, love to hear that. Zach, it's been such a pleasure having you. Anything else that you want to share with us about your career, what's coming with Temple, any exciting announcements, anything we should look out for? Now is the time to give us all those details.
Yeah, I mean, this week we have a really exciting one. We have OK playing the venue. I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping, don't know for sure, but I'm hoping he brings a saxophone player, yes. So we get a little bit of that. When Two Friends came a couple weeks ago, they did play OK's track, and they brought out a live sax for that, and the whole place went wild. So having the original artist come out and do the same thing would be huge. We have a bunch of great shows that we're still continuing to announce throughout the weeks. Our concert calendar keeps filling up more and more. And then our space, I'm really hoping, like I said earlier, we're going to be getting into stand-up comedy soon, and we already have a few really strong local promoters and local acts that have been jumping on board, and I'm hoping to bring in a lot more to that space. We do have a couple events coming up I can't really speak on just yet because they're still kind of in the works and private, but we do have a few very like big VIP events coming up for next month that are going to be kind of revolving around the sports scene and stuff like that. And awesome. That's going to be an area where my Adidas experience and is going to kind of shine and come through, because working with athletes has always been a lot of fun, and being able to incorporate a full-blown nightclub into something facing that direction is going to be wild, and I think it's going to be really exciting for everyone who's involved and who shows up to it.
Great. This has been awesome. Really appreciate your time here and talking to us all about Temple and telling us about your career path, and definitely looking forward to see what's going to be on the calendar coming up.
Great. Yeah. And I didn't really get a chance to talk about food, but
breakfast, of course. How could we not?
Right. And I mean, I feel like I should have gone with my plan A, which was the leftover ice cream from last night for breakfast. But, I'm glad I didn't. Kind of took a little bit from your book here and have some bacon and eggs as well.
Love it. Love it. It's a solid classic breakfast. You can never go wrong. Awesome, Zach. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Awesome, guys. What a fun guest, hearing about the nightclub industry and what's coming and getting a nightclub back on track, and especially a club like Temple with 2 different locations. I know there were some questions in the chat about that, and there is one in San Francisco and one in Denver, and Zach is the general manager of Denver. So next up, we were supposed to have a special guest named Aaron, better known as Sriracha Man, but unfortunately, Aaron was not able to make it with us today. So instead of just completely canceling that segment, we are just going to do a quick ode to Sriracha and Sriracha Man. So Aaron has been in the space for quite some time. He's received some press coverage as well from different organizations and outlets. Here's one of my favorite articles, which was done by EDM Identity. So taking a look at that, they just give a really nice insight into Aaron. And there's a great photo of him. Please leave a comment in the chat if you've ever seen Aaron or if you've ever seen Sriracha Man, because he is quite a legend in the space, constantly paying tribute to Sriracha as depicted here. Definitely a wild man that we would have loved to have on this show today. So I think we're just going to have to bring him on for next week. But he does go into talking about, in this article on EDM Identity, he does talk about his first festival that he attended. And there's some really great images of him, of course, with Sriracha. Constantly out there doing, I don't know what you would call it, chugs or shots of Sriracha. Nothing that I would do, but really impressed nonetheless. So those are just some really cool pictures of him. But you know, one other thing about Aaron too is he's built, as you could imagine, quite the following on social platforms. Looks like 10.5 thousand followers. You can actually book him as well because it appears that he's got an agent. And I believe he's also creating music right now too. So bummer that we couldn't ask some questions about that. But one thing that we can do is certainly take a quick peek at the life of Sriracha Man. So I'm going to go ahead and play a quick video for all of us right now. And that is our ode to Aaron, because what a legend. I know Aaron has met the founder of Insomniac, Pasquale. I know that he's obviously been on stages. He's doing some music production. Looks like he's been booked for a couple different spots too. So super cool to see all of this go down. And Aaron is someone I've been connected with for several years now. So to see him just transcend into this ultimate festival personality and musician is really, really cool. We'll make sure that we catch up with him on one of the next shows. We'll make sure to bring him so that we can hear a little bit more about what it is to be Sriracha Man. So guys, I think that that's about all that we have for today. Sorry for cutting this short just a little bit, this show just a little bit short here, but hope that you've enjoyed all of the news. Just a quick recap. We covered Hard Summer taking place last weekend, Lollapalooza, Limp Bizkit hitting the main stage, Fred Durst getting in full grandpa outfits. Looking forward to seeing what's going to come from that. We followed up on our story last week about DaBaby making some very inappropriate comments. He was also pulled from Lollapalooza this past weekend and then made a public apology. So we'll definitely see what progresses from that. We'll definitely try to answer the question about the Delta variant and what's going to happen in some of these cities, hoping that we don't see any more shutdowns. I know our beloved festival and music community definitely do not want that. But we did get to hear about what it was to open a nightclub post-lockdown, and we did a quick ode to Aaron, aka Sriracha Man. So that is the Breakfast Club show taking place every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Mountain, 9 a.m. Pacific. Please join us for our next show next week, and we'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much for being here and tuning in. Have a great week, everyone.